King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Here we are, Wrestling is Real podcast, episode 601. And today I get to announce to all of you out there that are very cognizant, you're getting scared shitless by the news. I got vaccinated today. I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, got my one dose, spent about 2.5 hours in the heat. It really wasn't that bad. It was in a big park and got to the point, you know, everything was quick and everybody was really nice about it. And there you go. Now I got my CDC card, all set to go. Perfect. That's what I needed to get. Anyway, let's move along. We're going to go ahead and talk about wrestling and comes to WrestleMania 37. Again, we are 2 weeks away. Next week is NXT TakeOver, Stand and Deliver. We got that coming up. And so that's where we are with a lot of different things. Now, you know, I don't want to continue to keep doing the same thing that other podcasters are doing, because I'm sure everybody's crapping on the product. WWE's WrestleMania build-up. We are all crapping on it. And I'm sure many of you have already listened over and over about what happened with Raw this past Monday night. Because, again, that's what we got. I mean, it sucks, but that's where we are. Now, one of the things I got to make mention of before I get into the talk about the WrestleMania build-up and where we are now, and some of the things that just did not go right, is the fact that it is enough where wrestling promotions are trying to build towards events, towards main events, towards pay-per-views, things like that. That happens a lot. AEW does that a whole lot. Almost every feud they have has something a little bit intricate to the storyline. We have a couple of things we know about the characters and their development. But same thing goes for NWA, same thing goes with MLW, same thing goes with Ring of Honor. And they're all trying to do something different, and Impact Wrestling. They're all trying to do something different to try to go ahead and build up to pay-per-views and try to build the traditional build-up of wrestling storylines in order to go ahead and bring to light the opportunity to get people invested into a story, because they need to be invested in the characters. Now, here is the problem. Because of the fact that AEW and the stars that we have, we only get so much exposure to them in the first place. And we also know quite a few of them because of their previous run in other organizations or their independent runs. There's only so much star power we're getting out of them, and it takes time to build. So everybody right now in AEW, you know, it's going to take a while. I mean, it took a long time for Chris Jericho to get there. It took a long time for Jon Moxley to get there, and for Cody Rhodes, and for Kenny Omega. Like, it's just what it is. It took a long time to be on television or wherever they were to try to build themselves where they wanted to get to now. And that's where we are. It's going to be tough. It's not easy. And that's where it lies to the other promotions, because they don't have that level of star power to really be able to do something huge and big. And again, some companies might have older stars that have been, you know, relegated to mid-card status for a long time, and to try to turn them around and to become a main event star is tough. Impact Wrestling is an example. You know, Kenny Omega coming over and working a title feud with Rich Swann. Rich Swann, you know, he's worked other companies. He was WWE, right? He did do MLW, and, you know, with Rich Swann, there was only a level he was able to reach. And while he's been here at Impact Wrestling, they are pushing him really good. That's the one thing. You have those stars that have come in and have had the rub in some bigger organizations. And then you have the stars that are trying to be made from the ground up, that have not had that much exposure. You look at, say, MJF or Orange Cassidy or Darby Allin or Sammy Guevara, others like that. And it's going to take a while for them to get built up to the level of becoming such a big star. But what we have over in WWE is we have stars that have so many years of experience and so much time in front of the cameras. We know their moves. We know what their catchphrases are. We know what they're going to do. If it's so simple and one-dimensional. My point is, we already know what these WWE superstars are like. They've been on our screens for so long. We've seen them push to the main event, and some have been dropped down and have been in a yo-yo effect forever, where there is the constant mid-card purgatory that doesn't benefit anyone. Let's be honest with each other. It even happened in the Attitude Era. Look, when I look at everything that's going on with WWE right now, and I look at TikTok a lot, and I think about a lot of different things when I look at TikTok, and I watch wrestling TikTok quite a bit, okay? And for me, when I look at all what's going on, the mid-card, if you're in the mid-card or below, it's nothing. The mid-card means absolutely nothing. In AEW, Impact Wrestling, they are trying to make efforts to even make the mid-card seem like it matters. Because you get matches that will become something that at least will be a somewhat entertaining match. It might not be something you'll be absolutely like over the top about, but at least you'll be, oh, okay, that's something interesting. You know, AEW Dynamite tonight, the Arcade Anarchy. You know, they did a lot of things to try to build that feud up. Now the best friends are back together. You know, Trent Beretta came back, and Chris Statlander came out. And, you know, seeing all the things that were brought up for that feud was trying to go and help build Miro, which is a mid-card star who was built to the top against John Cena, only to get buried and pushed down. And then you look at others that have been out there in the same way. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's not easy right now because we don't have the level of star power that we had before. When you think about the Attitude Era and how we enjoyed it so much, it's because there were so many main eventers or people that were just so pushed to the top that you couldn't get past all that. Like, there were just so many different stars that we were so over the moon about. They were just blockbuster, box office draw type stars. And there were a lot of them. But no one on any roster right now has any of that. I mean, I guess you could say we get that right now in New Japan Pro Wrestling, possibly. I feel like we're getting the remnants of that right now in AEW. But really, where else? Do you have a way where you stack a card so much? And then what's happening is some of the things that would be done to try to build things up, it's very different right now. AEW, they tried to go with maybe some 2 or 3 person factions, right? There's some teams or some duos, trios, things like that, trying to put things together like that. And what they're doing now, we see very apparent, especially since Revolution. What they've been doing is they're building factions now. Now we have lots of factions. And that's not a bad thing, because we used to have factions all over the place in WCW. We also had that in the WWF. It was all like that. So, I mean, in WWF, you might have the corporation, the nation of domination, right? Or you'd have things where you'd really build up, and you'd have stables in some cases. So now we're getting stables. Not so much factions, we're getting stables. And they're all being associated with some star of stature that is a good promo cutter and is a legend basically in their own right. And you think about it. Okay, Matt Hardy has his group now. You have the Pinnacle with Tully Blanchard as basically the J.J. Dillon of the group and MGF as their Ric Flair, right? And then you have the Inner Circle. And then you have the Nightmare Family, which now just turned on Cody and Dustin. And we have others that are the same way. And then you have other groups together that are kind of just come from association. And what happens is then you can create singles matches. You can create tag team matches. You can create 6-man tags, 10-man tags, whatever. That's the AEW model. And that's okay. That works. I like all that. And that's why I enjoy AEW so much. Now, is it a little bit formulaic? Yes. But I don't mind predictable. I really don't. Because we can't just expect that Vince McMahon or others can just continue to give us swerves over and over. This is not the Attitude Era once again. We're not going to get that again. We're not going to get back to that point 20 years ago, officially 20 years ago now, because we talked about last week the fall of WCW and the fall of Nitro. The final Nitro, the last Nitro. We talked all about that. So back to my point about wrestling TikTok. Looking back at all of the previous clips that everybody wants to go and talk about, all the comparisons being made throughout the years. I mean, again, I'm of the understanding, and this is what makes me different than most of the other podcasters out there, is because I have been the one for the longest time that was not the die-hard, loyal WWE fan. That was never my intention. I enjoyed it. That was the first wrestling I got to really appreciate. But at the same time, even growing up, I did not just watch WWF. I watched, what was it? I watched Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. I watched UWF. Not the other UWF, but the one that was Mid-South with Jim Ross, right? And Jerry the King Lawler and all that. I got to watch AWA on ESPN. And I watched Florida Championship Wrestling and World Championship Wrestling on TBS. That was all in front of me to watch on a regular basis. And I watched all those shows. Now, I might not have caught on as much as I did to others, but like with WWE, I did. I remember watching Pro Wrestling This Week with Gordon Soley and Joe Pedicini. Damn, that's a long time ago. Wow. But I didn't always get a whole feeling because growing up, and this is the difference of why we always position WWE so much. Because Vince McMahon and the way he made his style was so appealing to everybody. And it was something that everybody would talk about. Not the traditional wrestling, but the WWE style of wrestling. And that's where everybody got into. And because of that, WWF actually meant something more to me because of the build of the characters and the stars and the size of the buildings that we're in and how the people responded to them and the things they would do, right? All of that would get me to go ahead and make that the standout over all the other ones. Meanwhile, what did happen on the other promotions was good. The secondary at that time to me was going to be NWA and World Championship Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions. And seeing Ric Flair at the end of every show with the Four Horsemen about 10 minutes before the show's done, and it's either David Crockett or Tony Schiavone talking to Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen with J.J. Dillon. And they're all going through their promos. And I'm telling you, I would watch that. Like, that was the best part, was to catch, like, Ric Flair at, like, 7:55. Right? 10 minutes the show ends. And it was great. And I loved it. And they had other stars like this. Dusty Rhodes in the same way. Bigger than life. And we've talked about this many times on the program. Who is bigger than life right now that they've built? Because WWE has always been able to build stars bigger than life. They don't do that right now. These are the common constructs that are constantly the problem, the overlying problem of the entire brand. And the other promotions are trying to do something different where they're not trying to go the WWE style. They've always been doing what maybe Ring of Honor or ECW did. Or, they would go ahead and keep it a traditional wrestling format. Have the storylines, build the characters. But AEW is trying to get the best promos. And arguably every week they have great promos. If it's not, listen, the Darby Allin stuff with Sting, great. If it's MJF, great. If it's Chris Jericho, great. If it's John Moxley, great. If it's Eddie Kingston, great. So many promo cutters in that company. Plus the legends that they have on a regular basis. If it's Tully Blanchard or Jake Roberts. I mean, come on. You got the best promo cutters in the game over there. And who do you have that really stands out and is so confident they don't need any kind of script or anything to build off of? Who is there right now? Believe it or not, when I look at some of the TikTok clips that are always pulled out, of course we talk about CM Punk. Like, you just let him run. The pipe bomb, of course. And you know who also did that too? And you know what? And people underrate. They underrate. And I'll tell you, I bet you some people right now have remorse over shitting over John Cena after all this time. Think about it. And I said it was going to happen too. I predicted it. I think people have real remorse that John Cena is no longer involved right now. Regardless of how squeaky clean and all the character he does and all the goofy shit, this guy controlled an audience. And no matter what, and honestly, it was funny how people will say, when he got shit on, he took it like a pro. And he was great about it. I mean, we all have felt like John Cena was just thrown down our throats. But I'll tell you, man, the last couple of years, when he was finally letting go of the top spot and other people were getting a chance, I loved it. Roman Reigns getting that spot, AJ Styles getting that spot. Yes, it wasn't just Edge and Randy Orton over and over and over again. Yeah, it was different. And I loved all that. And it was great. Again, when you saw John Cena and The Rock take on each other over 2 WrestleManias, I'm sorry, that just kicked ass, man. And John Cena held his own. And I talked about it at that time. John Cena held his own. Who do you have that lives up to that level? I mean, somebody whose promo you're going to have to stop and listen to. Roman Reigns. And the problem is, he doesn't even get a chance to talk that much. But who do you have right now? And again, what do I always use as that promo? What is it always that test I say? Who can do the 20-minute promo? Who can't? There are some that are capable. Believe it or not. Right now, I'm going to go into the actual meat of the matter when it comes to the build of WrestleMania right now. Let's talk about Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Business from Monday night. While everybody else has been upset about the breakup, that part I'm okay with. To see Bobby Lashley go out on his own and become this heel monster, it's better to see him not around. Like, I understand the camaraderie to have, this faction. Fine. But they broke it up and they put a storyline together where there was a lot of hostility with the Hurt Business. They actually put a storyline together and let some things happen where things were kind of falling apart. And when Bobby Lashley wanted to make sure to not have to deal with Drew McIntyre, who was probably the biggest threat to lose his belt, yeah, when Cedric and Shelton could not cut it, he cut him off. That makes sense to me. That's a logical storyline. I'm probably one of the few people that actually understood, and I thought it was fine what they did with the Hurt Business. They could have done way better. But again, the reason the Hurt Business was put together was to help build a star. What they did was, it's just like Nation Domination, and Rock became the standout. And that's what's going to happen with these factions. Somebody actually did the right thing here by not just keeping a faction. Because who was going to get to stand out from that? I mean, do you really want to see Bobby Lashley constantly have to have help from... Listen, he already has MVP, which originally, when he was over at Impact Wrestling, that's all he needed was MVP at a while, and he had Kenny King. And Kenny King was just like part of the matter. But again, wasn't so much the whole matter. What it was is that Bobby Lashley with MVP, that's a pair. MVP's the big promo, cut, and Bobby Lashley can also cut it too. And they're great together. Like, there's no question, those two guys right now are incredible together. The problem is that the level, again, I hate to say this, but Shelton Benjamin, he's been ruined. He has been tarnished by all the bad booking that this company did. And part of it was funny, having his mom out there and, obviously had the world's greatest tag team. Sure. But that's Shelton Benjamin's legacy. And he got brought back. Honestly, because there was a need for somebody to come back and help build on the roster. And Shelton Benjamin, working with Cedric Alexander, is a good fit. Even though Cedric Alexander has quite a bit of experience himself, and he's done tag teams, and he's done quite well in Ring of Honor coming over here. And obviously, we saw his potential in 205 Live, and then they brought him up. and putting them together, I don't think you need to go and split up Shelton and Cedric. You just keep those two together. But do they need to be part of the Hurt Business? I don't think so. I think Bobby Lashley right now, with MVP being basically the Paul Heyman in this side, the equivalent of what Roman Reigns is right now, that is what you're looking at now. And what also needs to be understood is that WWE only knows, in some cases, how to go ahead and do heels. They are almost incapable of building any baby faces properly at all. We've talked about that before. Again, I could keep saying that like a broken record. How many times they've screwed things up because they don't have a proper baby face or a heel. And because the baby face always looks stupid. Almost all the time. When I looked at Sheamus and Riddle and the whole deal with the stupid scooter, again, Matt Riddle, they're making him like a buffoon because of where this gimmick is. He's like this is a dated version, this is a dated reference, but you're going to have to deal with it and you're going to have to Google it. Gomer Pyle or Jim Neighbors. That's what he is right now. He's like almost like it's like they're trying to make him like a dumb hick. And he just has this, this real fun personality. He just kind of like he's the stoner. He is the Spinelli. There's another, Louis Spinelli. There's another reference to, I don't know. Let's give a more current reference. How about Seth Rogen and, Danny McBride from Pineapple Express? Is that a better, more current reference for you? But that's what they're doing with him. And it's kind of an attachment, I guess, who he is. But again, it's somewhat amplified. And if Riddle feels okay with it, that's fine. But now, for what it's worth, Hurt Business without Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander is okay. It doesn't have to make... Bobby Lashley needs to be the standout. And what they need to do in order to keep people interested is they need to build some baby faces to take on Bobby Lashley. At this moment, they have Drew McIntyre. Who's next? Like, you should have a chain of custody. Like, you should have in the queue a couple other stars that are vouching. Now, how many times have I said this? How many times do I need to say, if you have a champion, you need to have some opponents ready to go ahead and build up and bring them up? And who do you have right now that you could quickly give them a nice couple of quick wins and build up to become the next person to go and take on? Because that's been the formula in WWF, WWE. Whether it was The Rock, whether it was the Hulk Hogan, whether it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, you would have a various cadre of superstars ready to go and come on up and be the next feud. Okay? That's how it worked. It was a formula that worked very well. And this company has lost that formula. They have swayed away. I don't know why. I guess the one question I have more than anything else is, why are we here? How is it after all this time that Vince McMahon and the people around him couldn't realize we needed to go ahead and get to another generation and change things up? They kind of done a little bit, but what has to happen is, I've said it already, there is no lack of talent on the WWE roster. And actually, there's no lack of talent or entertainment value that all these stars have as well. Believe it or not. Let me just explain this. Okay, you have stars on this roster that fit every different demographic of people you could think of. They are all embedded in social media in one way or the other. I can think of a lot of different ways how that happens. Remember when Baron Corbin would go ahead and, would be cooking barbecue, Kansas City style, on Twitter, and you'd see videos pop up. Or if I look at Sasha Banks looking gorgeous in every photo shoot on Instagram. Or when I watch now on TikTok, everything that Nia Jax or Lana does on TikTok on a regular basis. Like, honestly, Lana is one of the most entertaining people on TikTok, period. For a while, she was just doing all dances. Now she's still doing dances, but she's doing a lot of stuff backstage at the Thunderdome. And the stuff she does with Naomi and Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, I think all that's hilarious. Like, honestly, they are so they're likable, they're lovable, they're entertaining, they're having fun. One of my favorites I just saw today, a 90s challenge, 90s music, right? All the different 90s songs were out there, and it's Lana, Ricochet, dressed to the nines, and Naomi. It was awesome. And like for 60 seconds, they're all doing the songs. They know all the songs. It's like relatable. It was just so cool. And I liked it. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm digging it. These are people that could do something more, but they were not so scripted. They were not stuck to this old system of soap opera style booking that they're doing right now in this company. Then we're getting what we're getting. I mean, the epitome of what we have right now is, think about it like this. Oh, who else do we have that is really trying to stand out? Braun Strowman on Twitter. I mean, that guy's jacked. Since he started up, that's another thing. All these different wrestlers as well, you see them all getting jacked up. Again, they are pushing hard to make themselves the top of the roster. It's not, there's no lack of effort. Like, there's some of these guys that you look at and, man, they are just getting themselves in some amazing shape. And they do. Like, how many times have I seen? Remember when Jinder Mahal got back, right? And it might have been some steroids, but seriously, guy was jacked. Carlito coming back, jacked. Right? All these guys coming back like that. And I don't know. You can see the potential to do something more with these stars. But again, this old thinking, this old system that doesn't include social media, that doesn't include, I don't know. There's something where the Attitude Era style mentality that is being brought upon that Vince remembered was the heydays and trying to relive them again. And the same thing being done by those talking to the creative team, of which the creative team doesn't understand, never really could comprehend, and really were never made to write for wrestling. They're writing for other stuff. And they don't make sense what they're trying to do. And then, of course, you have the typical WrestleMania storyline where you have Shane McMahon. And Shane McMahon doing another stupid promo, Braun, and doing the report card. And all this contrived, rehashed bullshit that he always does. It's the Shane McMahon thing. I don't know. It doesn't work for me, but again, they're going to put a match together. It'll be a steel cage. The build-up is horrible. Now, the other thing I actually didn't have a problem so much with on Raw was the Bad Bunny stuff with Damian Priest. I think Damian Priest has benefited with having Bad Bunny in this corner. And I think right now with the Miz and Morrison and the match they're going to have, Miz and Bad Bunny, and the hip-hop was the Hey Hey Hop Hop song, right? There was a lot of nuances to the song. You might have just thought it was a goofy song, but listen, you had them doing reggaeton. And you had them doing dances out there. They're doing the thing about the bunny. They are definitely, it's a Bad Bunny diss track. And they're, being goofy, using Spanish words and doing things like that. I thought the song made sense for what they were trying to do with the storyline. No problem there. What else are you going to do? You can't do a whole lot of confrontations with the Bad Bunny, and he's still training to get ready to go. So that was okay. That was a hit. No, that was okay. It was somewhat of a hit. The Hurt Business to me was somewhat of a hit. A miss as well, like Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon. That would have to go to the New Day and the charades. I know they're trying. But again, as we're not doing win, lose, or draw, we're not doing charades, we're not doing any of that. And almost looks like an idiot out there. And he's meant nothing. And he doesn't mean anything. And, they're just trying to be a little bit cute and fun. But again, you talk about guys on New Day, they're doing Twitches, they're doing stuff where they're doing gaming. Like, there's a whole lot they're doing right there. Again, the social media approach with a lot of these stars is something else. Like AJ Styles on Twitch, right? They're doing some like kind of gaming, kind of goofy kind of thing. But again, that's the other problem. Why aren't we playing to their strong points of what they're doing? Why aren't we playing to these stars based on what they're interested in and they're putting it on social media? Then that relates to what they're seeing. So working out, or it's the dance stuff, or whatever, or it's the game stuff. Why are we not playing up to that? Why can't we use some of that into the storylines? Something that people can relate to. Not the same old, okay, I hate you. Well, I hate you. Oh, we're going to fight. And we're going to have an instant match right now. No. That's enough. But they want to keep doing that. But then there's the other problem. And that is when something gets booked, they might have something that's going to start. The way they get to the finish, it collapses like a house of cards. Now you want to understand why I use the House of Cards reference in the title of this show is because that's what it is. There is no strong foundation to any buildup of any of these matches this year. The way they built around to Lashley and McIntyre, to let Miz come in and kind of screw up the whole setup and not build anything long term, for Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair to be stuck as a tag team to try to build that up the same way Bayley and Sasha Banks were built. To do that, really, you have all these side turns and all these swerves that are being done just for the sake of swerves. And without them being strong and without them really taking away the focus of what the actual feud is supposed to be. That's why we always say, okay, the matches are going to be good. The matchups will be good. But what we expect from WWE that they used to always do, good, was build up to matches, build a hype, build interest, build heat. They don't do that anymore. They don't do that anymore. They're incapable of it right now. And that's because of who they have right now that is handling the business of building things up. There's nothing that's being built up to a crescendo. That doesn't happen. They don't build it like a song, where a song has a beginning, then they build up to something, you give it, like it's just a formula to like a song. They can't do a song. They don't know how to write it. They don't know how to compose it. But somehow the artist, if they can find some way to go and work around it, they can make it work. It's just the matches are just the matches. And more than ever, without the star power that they have, this is why AEW and Impact Wrestling and MLW and NWA, that's why they work so hard on storylines. They work intensely on storylines and building up storyboards and building up characters to try to do something with, to build something out. Now, believe it or not, I think about all the things that we had with, like, okay, certain characters within Impact Wrestling that just stand out and like, okay, Tommy Dreamer's been like so many different things in this era of Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, where he's been a detective, he's been doing the stuff in the court, he's been doing, different things, trying to help out other wrestlers. He's been kind of the mentor. He's done a whole lot of different things. When you look at Johnny Swinger's been a million things right now. Been a scammer, now he's a casino owner. Swingers Palace. And, he's been the goofball working with Madison Rain, doing the locker room talk, on all these kind of things. He's multiversal, multi-purpose. Again, goofy, somewhat of a jobber character, but he's hilarious. I think Johnny Swinger is funny as shit. Then you got Falaba, also fits the same thing, where you had the Wrestle House and all the different variances of all these stars, right? Where Rosemary, we saw different variances of her, where she's now back in decay and she's the evil witch, basically the demon girl, right? Once again. And then you have her playing the marriage stuff, like with the Johnny Bravo. All that stuff's kind of weird and funny and just kind of just out there, and that's okay. But again, you have so many different things that go on with these stars. I mean, even with Eric Young, now building him up as like this psychotic, broken down, just psychopath. Like he should be locked up. And Violence by Design, and trying to reinvigorate all these other guys they have on this faction of theirs, this stable, if you will. And so many different things they've done with Moose to make him like the playboy, and make him just like the former football star, the MMA kind of guy, or the guy holding the TNA World Heavyweight title. All the things he's done with him, various different things done with him. Remember, he was wearing like different outfits and all, like the change of gimmick, change of character, just move along. Evolve. Who evolves right now? Has Randy Orton evolved at all in the last 10 years? If somebody has evolved, it's because it happened somewhere else. Say, for instance, we talk about Drew McIntyre. He changed quite a bit since he left, and then he came back. Bobby Lashley changed a lot when he left, and then he came back. But you look at all these stars, what do they actually do with themselves? How have they kind of evolved in time? There are a few people that get to do that. Alexa Bliss has made a lot of changes. She was, the sparkle kind of girl in NXT. And then she changed and became, Gunner, or was Murphy and Blake's the leader, basically the manager, and became the heel. And then, Moment of Bliss and being kind of flirty, and then, having her deal with Nikki Cross and the whole build up of that, and also being the screw job, mean girl to Nia Jax. All of that changed. And now she's the 8-year-old, Sister Abigail type of Bray Wyatt. She's actually gone through a lot of different things. Bayley, yeah, a little bit. She was the huggable, the hugger, and now she's been like pure heel. And they've also changed her now to like doing talk show host kind of thing. So there's a big difference there. Kevin Owens, has he changed much? No. Sami Zayn, has he changed much? Yeah, somewhat. Now he's the conspiracy theorist. Wasn't so much like that when he first started off. So there's a bit of evolution there. I'm sure he tried to produce something, trying to build himself up. Cesaro, what have they done with him? Is there anything much different? The Superman, the big swing, right? No. Cesaro's been the same person. Ricochet's been the same person. I mean, they should have never done anything to change him. But again, like Ricochet should have just been the next Rey Mysterio, but they never did that. What has Baron Corbin done? He was the waiter, doing the general manager thing. Now he's the king, which is not much. It really doesn't mean anything now at all. Like, they just need to get rid of the king gimmick altogether and do something else with him. They should do something else with him. I don't know why. They just leave him where he is. They could do something else with him as well and change him up. I mean, think about when they did stuff with Booker, right? With Booker T. How many different changes did he make when he went to Impact Wrestling, or when he went to when he came into WWE, right? He was Booker T, like the GI Bro, the sucker, right? And then he went to King Booker, and then he went over to TNA and he did the little almost like the Jamaican kind of thing when it was with the. You had all that going on, and then it's like there was just changes to him. You would at least see some people evolve, because if you got people in front of us that have been on television for years. I mean, Edge is like, he's not rated R superstar anymore. What is this Edge right now? He looks old, grizzled, and but he's supposed to be still working out there. Like, that's just supposed to be a good feel-good story. That's what Edge is supposed to be. But to bring him back as a heel, and to have to go back to that, because they cannot build this guy as a face. After all this time, they just can't let him be a babyface. They have to be kind of just this goofy, quirky face character, and then he has to change. Daniel Bryan's changed a lot. Kind of a bit of the short complex, and of course he went over and did the stuff with Kane, and then he did the new Daniel Bryan gimmick. Like, that guy's evolved, but what is he right now? There's no gimmick to him. It's just plain Daniel Bryan, older. That's not an evolution. But again, if you're going to have these guys look like legends out there, they need to be faces, but they're not. But that's another thing that has to be understood, is that there are certain stars, if you do evolve their characters and you do something with them and continue to make things that will change and evolve the characters, unless there's the overall character that becomes something that will just stick and everybody's going to love, that's a different story. Like, I'm waiting to see what the evolution of Big E is going to be. They're starting to evolve him right now. Do I like the evolution of Apollo Crews? No. But I see on SmackDown they are trying to do that. It's all of that. There's so many different things that this company does where they can't build stars in order to book them. And when they do book them, because they're not confident in what they've created them to be, okay, it's not a testament to the ability of the wrestlers to wrestle in the ring. Because how many people do we have out there that are just really green and look bad all the time? Like, we don't have a lot of stars. Like, maybe some, I think Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke might be one. And then you could say there's a couple of others. But really, there isn't. I mean, the women's wrestlers are going to have like a little bit of botches here and there. We see that happen all the time. But, I mean, really. Well, Asuka's gone through a lot of evolution. We've seen that change, right? But that's what happens. Some stars, they just kind of change up. And again, it's what they're going to decide to do, to continue to do changes and try to find what is the overall going to be the character that will be overall on top and people will care about. A Charlotte Flair. I don't know if she's pregnant or not, but again, that's a star that should go with a revolution, or should be an evolution and change up. Like the way they changed Carmella was a good change up. By the way, that happens a lot on SmackDown, if you notice. There are changes into certain characters to make them something different. And they're at least trying to do that. That's commendable. Now, with the NXT part, that's where some things happen where, they don't feel like the gimmick that they have is so one-dimensional, because it was only because they're only going to have so much time on the roster. They need to find something else to kind of change up and really evolve a character that's been out there for so many years. They're not going to keep doing the same old character. Now, that should be something that should be considered, because I know we're starting to get to that point as well. Like, we are starting to say, some characters are stale. Some storylines are stale. Well, what are they doing to try to build that up? There's certain things that need to be changing of a character, because, the characters will change them, especially the women. Women are going to change in time. They're not going to be the same person. Psychologically, some women don't ever, they're always going to change things up, because they don't just ever stick to a routine. Sometimes they're just going to go and change something after a couple of years. You know what? I'm doing this kind of thing. Now I'm going to just change and do something different. Completely just switch. And they do. It's a psychology thing. Read it up. But now, the company doesn't think about it like that. They don't think what real life, they don't put any reality to the characters, and they don't let these characters become something that can be amplified. When you think about it, I don't know, but that's where we are right now. And this is why things are where they are. But it's not that this company is not incapable of being able to go and evolutionize their stars. They're able to do that. Listen, the whole deal about Roman Reigns and his heel character, the reason why it turned out so good is because whatever happened here with Paul Heyman, whatever Roman Reigns did, this whole thing of taking the Samoan heritage, which I am so sure that Paul Heyman must have something to do with this, but taking the whole idea of the Samoan heritage, the head of the table, so damn good. But here's the other thing I can think of too. Overexposure Roman Reigns, we can't do that. So he's only going to be out there so much. And honestly, Jey Uso, I feel like is close to as important to Roman Reigns as well. So I'm surprised that Jey Uso doesn't have anything he's working on himself, instead of just being in the background with Roman Reigns. Like, I know he's involved himself in certain things with like Daniel Bryan, with Edge, because of, he has to be the one that handles kind of the business in front before Roman Reigns does. But I wish Jey Uso had other things to do as well. I wish he still had his own agenda to work on as well. Trying to win his own belt as, trying to appease his cousin. I don't know. But they're not doing that. But these are the things I think about. And I'm saying this to myself, without that star power, if you don't have the star power to really build off a storyline with, which is what they would used to do all the time. With WWE, they're able to take a star and they find something to go and work him with. Like, okay, what can we do with this big star that we have? Let's give him something to work on. Let's do something we can do to build. Or something we can work off as a feud to try to make it work. And that's where we are. I mean, really, it's like Braun Strowman is this particular project. Let's find somebody to work off of. And so they've done that with a lot of different people he's worked with. Miz the same way. Or Roman Reigns. Or, whatever. But, like, you have their stars that they see that they can use and what their purpose is and how they're going to be utilized. But when they don't have the level of star power to keep people watching the show live, and you can't get more than 2 million viewers to watch a show, whether it's hot shot booked or not, and whether the storylines are really special you know, where the storylines don't really mean much, is because you're watching the star. Like a star that gets a crap storyline can make it work. Like you would hope that Randy Orton, even though this is a really bad storyline, would be able to make this work with Bray Wyatt. Like there's, you know, you can overcome bad storylines. You can overcome bad special effects. You can overcome anything. And I feel like Randy Orton can't do that. Like how many times have we seen him in certain feuds that just don't work? God, man, Jinder Mahal. I think about that all the time. And I'm saying, you put that, the Punjabi prison match. I keep thinking about that. And I'm like, yeah, it's horrible to be in this match. We know how it was before. How about we at least try to make this work? And it doesn't, right? But at least some stars have had some crap things to work off of, and they made it work. I mean, the whole idea with Booker T and Stone Cold Steve Austin and some mid-card feud, you know, having to work off each other, you know, fighting each other in the supermarket. Might be things like that, you know. Or, I mean, there's a lot of different things where we had some goofy, weird stuff, and some stars are able to work off of it. If it's goofy, if it's stupid, if it's something else, you find a way to make it work. Now, maybe it's just impossible to ask for that. It probably is. But these are the kind of things that are not considered right now in the company. And when you're not able to do that, then your booking is going to be a house of cards. It's going to be thin. It's going to be easy to collapse. And that's what keeps happening all the time right now. It would be better off if this company just kept things predictable. And I think people would probably feel fine about it being predictable. Because you're doing better than trying to swerve the fans. You're swerving the fans just for the purpose of swerving the fans. It's as if we have to keep surprises. We have to keep swerving. No, you don't. You are incapable of doing that right now. At least when there was a time when WCW was doing really bad and you didn't have the likes of Vince Russo or Eric Bischoff being involved, and it was just Kevin Sullivan trying to build it up. Well, Kevin Sullivan at least would try to get some point from one point to the other. And, of course, he had some stars that really were bad at one point, and what was it, like 2000, when he only had Savage or Nash and so many other people that would not work or people that were injured. And you had to work with, you know, a couple other stars in the background. I mean, this, you know, wasn't great, but you could at least see he tried to get somewhere with what they had. And him and Bob Mould and all these other people, they at least tried to do something, at least give the effort. But when you don't have that kind of star power, you have to build storylines. You have to give the story as the reason to make people watch, not the characters. The characters play out the storyline, but they don't want to do that right now. It's too bad, because that's where we are as a problem in this company. They don't figure this out, and they don't understand what they need to do to get there. Like, because if they would just seriously take some storylines and try to build off of, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, but I wish they would. And the same thing goes for the fact that this company, you can't live off your legacy anymore. And you can't keep trying to do the same things that you tried to do back then and think the stars you have now can replicate it or make it as good as it once was. You can't do that either. To constantly have the contract signing the same way, to have, you know, certain feuds or certain confrontations the same way, to do some of the same gimmicks to put somebody down the same way. That's enough. Rehashing and retooling. That's what cable and that's what network TV does right now. They have to go and live in their past. WWE, in order for their content to get better, cannot keep living in their past. And they cannot keep living on the same formula that worked. It's not the set that needs to change. It's not so much the look. It's the formula that needs to change. Altogether. No more of the classic, okay, some star has the title, let's keep making him lose. Or let's keep letting certain stars lose. How about letting people get a winning streak and talking about the winning streak and making a point of, look, they're building up to become somebody big. And sometimes when you get a new star and you let them get some wins and then you quickly make them lose and it means nothing. At least with AEW, And in some of the cases, other promotions, they at least try to make the matches that they have that might be on TV that are in between the build up a feud, they mean something. There's something behind it. There's a lot of story being told. There's something to work off of. Will it be good? Not always. Listen, I just saw Impact Wrestling took another dip in their viewership, and that sucks. But again, they're on a bad channel. But now changing to Thursdays that they're going to officially do on August 13th, that should help a lot. Should help a whole lot. Now, I don't know why they went and dropped to 38,000 viewers. Something happened there. I don't know. But that looks bad. Something must have happened about what happened to the show and why it did not do well. So we'll check on that. But either which way, what is it that WWE can do to make things turn around? It's, again, you got to have the stars. You have the stars that are capable of carrying a storyline. They can perform. They can play their part. That's the point. They can play their part, and you give them room to amplify that part. And then you do the storyline, and you give a good storyline that will actually work without them needing to go and do the best part. As long as you get the storyline out there, you can actually make it happen. And you can build some heat, and you can build some interest. You can build some excitement or laughter or something. But what WWE does is they do it live, and then you know what they always do? They'll edit it down for what they're going to do for the promos right now for WrestleMania, and they'll make it, and their production guys are wizards. They'll make it look good. They'll make it make sense. But when we watch it in real time, it looks so bad. And it stretches out. And remember, I don't say it like this at all, but it's really like this as well. In some cases, when we watch Raw or SmackDown on television regularly, sometimes I feel like, they're doing everything out like a dress rehearsal. Like they're doing it like a rehearsal. And, if they could do it better, if they had the audience in front of them, like if they could do it better the next time. But again, at least if they get close enough, the show gets performed like it is. Maybe a couple botches here and there. Maybe some storylines don't work that good. When you're watching in real time, it doesn't work effectively. Especially when you're trying to do things that you normally would have a crowd for and you don't. And then what do they always do? Well, we can make it look like our style. We can add the music, add the extra, dramatic effects. And then we can then create the storyline, work off of something that worked in this part of the storyline or this part of a promo or this part of a segment, and then we can build the story off of that. So they can build a storyline and try to create a whole story leading up to a match with a couple weeks to go, which is what they're always good at to get WrestleMania to build. Because their promos, when they put them together and they start running them regularly, they always build up to make the match look better. They always do that. But they're not doing that now to make it work out everybody else wants. That's what they're not doing. Yeah. That's a big problem. I don't know if I've actually said it that way before, but it just makes sense. I wish this company had this figured out. I don't want to keep criticizing, but they just can't help themselves. But I think I'm being as positive as I can. I mean, they continue to make some improvements. And, they make good with what they have. But, again, it's whoever is managing the creative part of this whole project. From whoever's producing the product there. I mean, it's really, if you could just change the regime that's there. I mean, if Vince was no longer so involved day to day. If you could replace Kevin Dunn, if you could replace Bruce Pritchard, if you could replace some of the agents they have that are putting their input in there, and you could get some fresh people to go ahead and work with the creative team and really get the creative team to make some difference. I don't know. I mean, the other thing, too, is that sometimes the creative team have ideas for other characters because it could see something else they could do with a character that works. This is why we had Mandy and Otis that worked so well. Because nobody was thinking about doing anything for Mandy or for Otis, right? And the truth is, when you think about it, I mean, the Otis character has been lost in the Alpha Academy. But you know what storyline actually worked really well that came as a result of the Otis storyline? Was the Mandy Rose Sonya Deville storyline. And I think when Sonya Deville was part of that storyline, that made her even better. And Sonya Deville, by the way, also very active on social media. A lot of Instagram, very glam, beautiful girl. And she does some stuff on TikTok as well. And again, and even Mandy Rose, also a lot of character when it comes on TikTok. But I don't know. Well, the other thing, too, with Mandy Rose, they keep her hair short after that storyline was done. I wish she would grow the hair back out because, listen, she's a beautiful girl, fitness model, but, man, she looks... The hair kind of softened her look. Just made her a little more, more of the model and less fitness model. And I think there's a little bit of a balance that you have right there. I used to like the long tresses on her anyway, but, it's different. The Golden Goddess. We don't have that now. I kind of wish we still had that. But Sonya Deville moving over to the management spot, I mean, that works. And there's just more they could be doing right now where the creative team probably wants to work with some other stars and try to work on, I can do something with this person. I can do something with this person. But then who's telling them they can't? Right? That's where we are. Because who's overseeing creative is saying, you need to make something for this star. Well, we've already done a whole lot of stuff with this star. What else can we do with them that we haven't already done? Well, maybe you don't need to make something that we've already done with them. You do something and just, live off their legacy and do something else. Something more traditional, something more conventional. I don't know. But they don't want to do that. And, of course, we can't do any extreme changes to a certain star of a certain level because of their marketability. Also, it's probably what the shareholders might have to say about it or what the networks will have to say about it. A whole lot of the people have to have their say. Anyways. So a few things have been set up right now for Stand and Deliver NXT TakeOver, which I'll watch. And actually, I'll get, of course, on Tuesday nights, we'll start having NXT coming up. I'll get to talk about that more. Because, again, I just don't decide to go and watch regularly NXT on Wednesday nights because I'm absolutely watching Dynamite. There's no question about that. So 2 nights you're going to have. One night it's going to be on USA Network. Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship. MSK, Wesley and Nash Carter versus Gristle Young Veterans. James Drake and Zach Gibson versus Legado del Fantasma, Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza. Going after each other for the NXT Tag Team titles. 6-man gauntlet match for the to determine I think it's an opponent for the North American title. That's Dexter Lumis, Bronson Reed, Leon Ruff, Isaiah Swerve Scott, LA Knight, Cameron Grimes. Pete Dunne versus Kushida. NXT UK Championship, Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa. Thursday night 2 on Peacock as NXT title Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross. Unsanctioned match with Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. NXT North American title. Johnny Gargano takes on the winner of the Night 1 Gauntlet. And then the women's tag team titles, Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon versus Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae. Cruiserweight title unification. Jordan Devlin versus Santos Escobar in a ladder match. So good matches are going to have set up for NXT TakeOver. We always know it's going to... The takeovers are always going to be good. I haven't really paid attention a lot to the NXT show. So I really don't build to the build-up. But then again, I feel like in some cases, if you just need to get a little bit of a precursor of what is going on the main roster, you can pretty much follow a little bit what they're going to be doing and then get to the pay-per-views. So why would you need to go and watch the show? Again, all those hours of programming without some good storylines to build off of course people are not going to go and sit and watch. They're going to just come in and out. And the ones that are watching right now are the hangers-on, the ones that have watched since forever, and they will never leave. Unless they absolutely find some way to make it where they're going to leave after all. That's what they're going to do. Okay, we're going to leave it there. So next week, we will have NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. I don't know what I'm going to do with the show itself. Well, I will not get to watch TakeOver on Wednesday night. What I'll probably do is this. I'll probably watch TakeOver for night 1 and night 2, and I'll record a show on Thursday night. And I'll have to figure out how to do that after my Broadcasters podcast. But I'll probably record something on Thursday night to go ahead and talk about that, about both nights of the event. I'll figure some way to do that. Maybe I'll record it during the day. Something, I'll figure it out. And then we come up to WrestleMania, which is following after that. And, of course, I will do post shows for both night 1 and night 2. We'll do that. I think that's where we're going to all work it out. I'll figure out how we're going to do the schedule like that. But again, it's the NXT TakeOver is going to be kind of interesting how to go and do both nights and how to pull it together. And it'll be interesting. The last time we're going to see NXT go up head-to-head against AEW, and what will it do to AEW's ratings? Like, again, we also have to check out what the ratings are going to be now that the Wednesday Night Wars are ending. And NXT TakeOver is going to be that last chance to really push to put a good rating in front and kind of put one loss in the loss column for AEW because of what they can do with their event. We'll see how that's going to work out. But anyway, come back next week for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.